Hey guys! Tonight we're taking a journey to a part of ancient Rome you won't find on any tourist map. A side of the empire often whispered about, rarely discussed openly. Imagine the flickering oil lamps illuminating narrow, shadowed alleys, the scent of cheap wine and something less savory hanging heavy in the air. You hear distant laughter, but it's brittle, not joyful. You're about to step into the grim, often terrifying, reality of those living on the absolute fringes of Roman society, where every day is a fight for survival, and dignity is a luxury few can afford. Trust me, you probably wouldn't last a single night here, let alone a lifetime. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're up for it, drop your location and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing on the margins of Roman society, a place where the grandeur of the Forum and the power of the Senate feel a million miles away. This isn't the Rome of emperors and philosophers. This is the Rome of the desperate, the dispossessed, and the downtrodden. Your existence here is defined by stark, often brutal, choices, all made in the relentless pursuit of one thing: survival. You are about to become intimately acquainted with the lives of those who existed at the very bottom of the social hierarchy. A world where the line between freedom and bondage was perpetually blurred, and where personal autonomy was a concept as foreign as mercy. Imagine the cacophony of Rome, but stripped of its celebratory veneer. Here, the sounds are harsher, the coarse shouts of vendors, the endless chatter of the common folk, and a subtle undercurrent of desperation that hums beneath it all. The smells are pungent: stale food, sewage, cheap perfume, and the ever-present odor of unwashed bodies. You are acutely aware that you blend seamlessly into this crowd, a face among thousands, yet also utterly isolated. Your appearance, though perhaps once respectable, is now marked by the grime of poverty, the weariness in your eyes reflecting the hardships you endure daily. Your story, like many others in this shadowed corner of the empire, likely begins with a lack of options. Perhaps you were born into slavery and later freed, only to find that liberty offered no true escape from destitution. Maybe you were a free-born Roman, but misfortune a family debt. The death of a guardian, a betrayal left you with nowhere else to turn. In ancient Rome, without a social safety net, without family connections, and without resources, the choices available to you rapidly dwindled. One common misconception is that all prostitutes were slaves. While many were, there were also free-born women driven to it by poverty. You now exist in that terrifying space where dire necessity dictates your path. The streets you walk are narrow, often unpaved, slick with refuse and the occasional puddle. The grand public buildings of Rome are distant landmarks, symbols of a world you glimpse but cannot enter. Your world is confined to the bustling alleyways, the crowded tenements insulae, and the dimly lit taverns that serve as the focal points of your existence. You observe the throngs of people, the soldiers, the merchants, the ordinary citizens going about their lives, and you feel a profound disconnect. They exist in a world of rules and expectations that simply do not apply to you. The very air you breathe feels heavy with judgment. Even before you fully step into your role, you sense the societal scorn, the immediate dehumanization. You are not seen as a person with thoughts, feelings, or aspirations, but as an object, a commodity. This stripping away of your humanity is subtle at first, a dismissive glance, a snide remark, but it quickly becomes the pervasive reality of your daily interactions. Historians still debate the precise legal and social status of prostitutes in Rome, as it varied by type and context. But what is clear is that they occupied a liminal space, legally tolerated but morally condemned. Your struggle for survival isn't just about food and shelter. It's about navigating a complex, unforgiving social landscape. You learn to read faces, to anticipate moods, to quickly assess potential threats or opportunities. Every interaction is a delicate dance, a negotiation for your meager earnings, for your safety. You develop a thick skin, a protective shell against the constant barrage of indignity. Yet, beneath that hardened exterior, the emotional toll is immense. You yearn for kindness, for recognition, for anything that might affirm your worth as a human being. But such luxuries are rarely afforded to someone in your position. The city, for all its power and glory, becomes a sprawling, indifferent beast. Its vastness means you are largely anonymous, a fleeting presence easily forgotten. This anonymity can be both a blessing and a curse. It offers a degree of freedom from constant scrutiny, but also means there are few, if any, who would notice if you simply disappeared. There's no one truly looking out for you, no one to advocate on your behalf. You are fundamentally alone in a city of millions. You also become acutely aware of the vulnerability of your body. It is your only asset, your only means of exchange in this brutal economy. This awareness is a constant source of anxiety. You learn to be wary, to protect yourself as best you can in a world where personal safety is never guaranteed. The threat of violence, of disease, of exploitation hangs over you like a perpetual storm cloud. You must be constantly vigilant, constantly calculating risks, even in moments of supposed rest. It's a terrifying tightrope walk, every single day. Consider the simple act of eating. For you, it's not about savoring a meal. It's about calorie intake, about warding off the gnawing hunger that is a constant companion. Your food is likely cheap, unappealing, and perhaps acquired from questionable sources. You eat quickly, almost furtively, trying to avoid drawing attention to yourself. The luxury of a full, satisfying meal is a distant memory, replaced by the grim necessity of fueling your exhausted body for another day of endurance. The nights are often the worst. The city takes on a different character after dark. While parts of Rome would have been bustling, other areas became more dangerous, especially for someone in your precarious position. The shadows lengthen, concealing threats, and the air cools, adding a physical chill to your already profound sense of isolation. You learn to navigate these nights, to identify the few safe havens, and to recognize the signs of impending danger. Your journey into this miserable reality isn't just about observation. It's about experiencing the profound weight of a life lived without agency, without hope, and without the fundamental respect afforded to most other human beings. The sheer indignity, the pervasive sense of being utterly disposable, is what truly defines your existence. This is not a story of grand triumphs or heroic struggles. It is a quiet, continuous battle for a shred of existence, fought on the very lowest rungs of the Roman social ladder. You are entering a world where comfort, dignity, and even a simple measure of safety are luxuries you simply cannot afford. And you are about to see just how truly awful that reality was. You've survived your first brush with the city's underbelly, but the chilling reality of your new existence is about to become even more stark. Your path, whether by force or by desperation, has led you to a lupanar, a Roman brothel. This isn't the romanticized image you might conjure. It's a grim, claustrophobic space designed for one-purpose transaction, devoid of humanity. Imagine approaching the building. It might be a small, unassuming structure tucked away in a narrow alley, perhaps marked by a crude sign or a suggestive painting on the wall. A faded image of a phallus, a common symbol indicating the nature of the establishment. The entrance is often dark, perhaps a heavy wooden door that creaks open to reveal a perpetually dim interior. The air inside is immediately oppressive, a heavy mixture of cheap perfumed oils trying to mask unpleasant odors, stale sweat, unwashed bodies, and the lingering scent of unidentifiable bodily fluids. It's a sensory assault, forcing you to gag slightly, but you quickly suppress it. This is your new reality. Stepping inside, your eyes struggle to adjust to the perpetual gloom. Natural light is a luxury rarely afforded here. What little illumination exists comes from flickering oil lamps, casting dancing shadows that make the already cramped space feel even more confining. The walls are likely bare, stained, and cold to the touch. The floor, probably dirt or rough stone, is gritty beneath your worn sandals. This is not a place designed for comfort or beauty. It is a utilitarian cage. The claustrophobic reality immediately asserts itself. The lupanar is typically a series of small, cell-like rooms, or cellae meretrici, often barely large enough to hold a simple bed or cot. These rooms are usually arranged around a central common area or a narrow corridor. There are no windows, no fresh air, just the stale, heavy atmosphere of constant occupation. You are assigned one of these tiny cells, a space that offers absolutely no personal refuge, no sense of ownership. It is merely a station, a point of sale. Your bed is usually a simple, low cot, often made of stone or brick, with a thin, hard mattress, likely stuffed with straw and rarely cleaned. The linens, if they exist, are coarse, stained, and uninviting. This isn't a place for rest. It's merely the platform for your unwilling labor. You quickly realize that any notion of personal privacy is a myth. The walls are thin. The sounds of the establishment bleed through, the muffled voices, the creaking of other cots, the low moans, the coarse laughter. You are constantly aware of others, and they, of you. There is no escape from the pervasive presence of others, no quiet corner for introspection. The brothel keeper, or Leno Lena, quickly establishes their authority. They are the ones who control your meager earnings, your food, your very existence within these walls. They set the rules, the prices, and the expectations. Their gaze is often cold, assessing, devoid of empathy. You are their property, or their investment, depending on your legal status, and they treat you as such. Any act of defiance, any sign of resistance, is met with swift and often brutal punishment. You quickly learn to obey, to suppress your own will, for your survival depends on it. The other women in the lupanar are your unwilling companions in misery. You might see a range of ages, from young girls who have barely reached puberty to older women, their faces etched with years of hardship. There's a quiet understanding between you, a shared burden, but rarely true camaraderie. Competition for clients, for meager scraps of food, for a moment of peace, often pits you against each other. Kindness, when it occurs, is a rare and precious commodity. Historians still debate the extent of solidarity or conflict among women in Roman brothels. But conditions certainly fostered an environment where trust was hard-won. Despair lingers in every corner of this place. It's in the slumped shoulders of the women waiting for a client, in the vacant stares, in the silences that fall between forced conversations. It's a heavy, pervasive feeling, a constant reminder of the life you've lost, the future you no longer possess. You try to push it down, to numb yourself to it, but it's always there, a cold hand on your heart. You might find yourself staring blankly at the stained wall, your mind drifting to memories of a different life, a life of innocence and hope that now seems like a cruel dream. The waiting area, if there is one, is equally uninviting. Perhaps a rough bench or simply a corner where you stand, on display, awaiting the next client. The air is thick with anticipation and dread. You learn to put on a mask, a veneer of indifference or even forced flirtatiousness, masking the turmoil within. It's a performance, every single time, designed to attract a client and to get the encounter over with as quickly as possible. The clients themselves are a varied lot: drunken sailors, bored merchants, curious youths, jaded soldiers. Their faces blur into a single, undifferentiated mass of demand. The pervasive lack of hygiene in a Roman lupanar is not just unpleasant, it's a constant health risk. Clean water is scarce. Proper bathing facilities are non-existent, and sanitation is rudimentary at best. The stench of sweat, urine, and other bodily fluids is ever present. You are forced to exist in a state of perpetual uncleanliness, which not only impacts your physical health, but also contributes to your sense of degradation. Disease, as you will soon discover, is an inevitable companion in this environment. You might try to maintain some semblance of personal cleanliness with what little water is available, but it's a losing battle against the inherent squalor of the place. You quickly learn the rules, unspoken and explicit. You are expected to be available, to comply, to suppress any personal feelings or desires. Your body is no longer your own. It is a tool, a means to an end for the brothel keeper and your clients. This fundamental loss of autonomy is perhaps the most crushing aspect of your existence. You have no say over who you see, when you work, or how long you endure. You are utterly powerless, a mere cog in a brutal machine. The sounds of the brothel are a constant backdrop to your life. The heavy creak of the door as a client enters, the low murmur of negotiations, the occasional burst of drunken laughter, the quick rhythmic thuds from the adjacent cells. It's a symphony of misery, a constant reminder of your situation, even in the dead of night. If you manage a few hours of sleep, the sounds can permeate your dreams, trapping you in the lupanar even when your eyes are closed. One fascinating and grim detail about Roman brothels, particularly in cities like Pompeii, is the presence of explicit frescoes or carvings on the walls of the individual cells, depicting various sexual positions. While seemingly decorative, these images likely served a practical purpose, acting as a menu for clients, or perhaps as a subtle form of instruction for the women, standardizing expectations and minimizing the need for verbal negotiation in a noisy or multilingual environment. Imagine being surrounded by such depictions, a constant visual reminder of the commodification of your body. Your spirit, once perhaps vibrant and hopeful, begins to wither under the relentless assault of this environment. The constant indignity, the lack of control, the sheer physical and emotional drain, all combine to chip away at your sense of self. You become numb, a defense mechanism against the overwhelming despair. You learn to dissociate, to separate your mind from your body, to become an empty vessel during the encounters, just to survive. This profound dehumanization is the true core of your existence within the lupanar's grimy walls. It is a slow, agonizing death of the spirit, played out in the claustrophobic confines of a few square feet. The sun rises again. But for you, it simply marks the beginning of another cycle of daily drudgery. There's no sense of a new day, no fresh start. Each morning in the lupanar is a carbon copy of the last, defined by a relentless rhythm of waiting, performing, and enduring a profound, agonizing loss of self. You wake, if wake is even the right word for your fitful, exhausted state, on your hard, straw-filled cot. The air is still heavy and stale, a perpetual miasma of sweat, stale wine, and the lingering scent of desperation. There's no gentle morning light filtering in, only the dim, artificial glow of an oil lamp. If the brothel keeper has bothered to light one, your body aches from the uncomfortable sleep, your mind already bracing for the hours ahead. Your morning routine is brief and devoid of personal care. A quick splash of lukewarm, perhaps dirty, water on your face, if it's available. You try to smooth your hair to make yourself appear presentable, but it's a futile effort against the pervasive grime. Your clothing, likely the same simple, worn tunic you wore yesterday, offers little comfort or dignity. You might attempt to mask the pervasive odors with a dab of cheap, pungent perfume, but it's a weak defense against the environment. This isn't about looking beautiful, it's about appearing minimally acceptable for your grim purpose. Then comes the waiting. This is perhaps the most insidious part of your day. A protracted period of anticipation and dread. You sit or stand in a designated area, perhaps a narrow corridor or a small, dingy common room, along with the other women. There's little conversation, just a shared, heavy silence, punctuated by sighs, fidgeting, and the occasional cough. You watch the entrance. Every shadow, every distant sound potentially signaling the arrival of a client. Time stretches endlessly, each minute feeling like an hour. During this waiting period, your mind is a battleground. You try to steel yourself, to build emotional walls. You practice detachment, preparing to separate your mind from your body. This mental exercise is crucial for survival, a way to numb yourself to the indignities that are inevitably coming. You observe the other women, some resigned, some hardened, some with a flicker of distant hope in their eyes. You learn to recognize the subtle cues of exhaustion, of hidden pain, in their demeanor. When a client finally arrives, the performance begins. You are not a person engaging in a consensual act. You are a service provider. Your role is to appear compliant, receptive, and to facilitate the transaction as quickly and efficiently as possible. There's no room for personal feelings, no space for resistance. You learn to mimic expressions, to offer forced smiles, to use pre-rehearsed phrases. It's a terrifying form of acting, where your body is the stage and your emotions are locked away. The dehumanization is profound and relentless. Clients rarely see you as an individual. You are an object, a vessel for their desires, a means to an end. They might not even use your name, if you have one. You are addressed by a generic term, a number, or simply by an impatient grunt. This constant objectification chips away at your sense of self, making you feel increasingly like a puppet, devoid of agency or personality. You exist purely for the fleeting gratification of others. Historians still debate the extent to which Roman society truly viewed prostitutes as non-persons. But your lived experience leaves no doubt about the pervasive nature of your dehumanization. The acts themselves are often quick, brutal, and utterly devoid of pleasure or intimacy. Your focus is on enduring, on getting through the moment. You learn to dissociate, to detach your mind, to retreat into an inner space where the indignity cannot reach you. Your body performs the necessary motions, but your mind is miles away, perhaps replaying a cherished memory from a past life, or simply blanking out. This mental escape mechanism is vital for your sanity, a small pocket of refuge in an otherwise intolerable existence. This cycle of waiting and performing repeats itself endlessly throughout the day and into the night. There are no breaks, no personal time, no moments of true respite. Your energy wanes, your body grows more weary, but the demands remain constant. The brothel keeper ensures you are always available, always ready for the next client. Your personal needs are secondary, if they are considered at all. Food is provided, but it's often irregular and insufficient, just enough to keep you functioning. Even when there are no clients, your time isn't your own. You might be tasked with chores around the brothel, cleaning, fetching water, or tending to the brothel keeper's whims. This ensures that every waking moment is dedicated to the establishment, further cementing your role as a chattel, a tool for their profit. The concept of leisure, of a moment for yourself, is alien to this life. The emotional toll is immense. You live in a constant state of anxiety, fear, and profound sadness. The joy, hope, and spontaneity that once defined you are slowly eroded, replaced by a dull ache of resignation. You witness the suffering of the other women, some younger than you, some older, their eyes reflecting the same despair. You develop a kind of emotional numbness, a necessary shield against the overwhelming misery. This profound loss of self is not a sudden event, but a gradual, insidious process, chipping away at your identity until you barely recognize the person you once were. One uncommon detail about Roman brothels is that some were incredibly small, perhaps just a single room in a larger tenement. operating with only one or two women. Others were much larger, multi-room establishments, especially in major port cities like Ostia, where they catered to a constant influx of sailors and merchants. The scale might vary, but the fundamental experience of confinement and exploitation remained the same, just perhaps amplified in larger, more organized establishments. As the hours drag on, you become acutely aware of the fleeting nature of each encounter. The client arrives, the transaction occurs, they leave. You are immediately discarded from their minds. Just another fleeting experience. This constant transience of human connection, always reduced to a monetary exchange, reinforces your isolation and worthlessness. You yearn for genuine human interaction, for a moment where you are seen and valued, but such moments are almost impossible to find in this environment. The sounds of the brothel become a muffled drone in your mind, the creaking bed, the whispered words, the occasional drunken song from outside. You learn to filter them out, to create a mental space of silence, however fragile. This self-imposed isolation is a desperate attempt to protect the last vestiges of your inner self, a tiny spark of humanity that the brothel constantly tries to extinguish. By the time the night ends, you are utterly exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. You collapse onto your cot, seeking the oblivion of sleep. But even then, your mind often replays the day's encounters, the indignities, the constant reminders of your miserable existence. Your dreams, if they come, are likely fragmented, filled with the blurred faces of clients, the oppressive smells, and the constant, dull ache of despair. This is your life now, a seemingly endless loop of daily drudgery and the quiet, persistent loss of self, played out within the stifling confines of the lupanar. The oppressive cycle of the lupanar continues, but now, your focus shifts to the individual interactions that define your miserable existence, the constant stream of patrons, pleasures, and the ever-present peril that accompanies each encounter. Every client is not just a person, they are a transaction, a fleeting moment of contact that carries significant emotional and physical cost. You stand or sit in your designated cell, or perhaps in a communal waiting area, the stench of stale wine and unwashed bodies a constant companion. The anticipation of a client's arrival is a familiar dread. You learn to recognize the various types, the loud, boisterous men reeking of cheap wine, the quiet, furtive ones who avoid eye contact, the young, nervous youths on their first visit, and the older, jaded men whose eyes hold a familiar emptiness. Each one represents a different set of demands, a different kind of burden. When a client enters your cell, the air thickens with unspoken expectations. There's no polite greeting, no casual conversation. The transaction is immediate, often blunt. You are expected to fulfill a need, and your role is to comply. The pleasures you offer are not your own, they are forced performances, designed to satiate the client's desires quickly and efficiently. You become a hollow vessel, your mind retreating to a safe, distant place while your body goes through the motions. This dissociation is your primary coping mechanism, a crucial mental escape that allows you to endure the indignity without completely breaking. The encounters themselves are rarely about genuine pleasure for anyone involved. For the client, it's often a quick, transactional release. For you, it's a profound act of self-betrayal, a constant chipping away at your sense of dignity. The bed, already hard and stained, becomes the stage for this repetitive, dehumanizing drama. You learn to predict the course of events, to anticipate the demands, to finish the encounter as swiftly as possible. Time, in these moments, simultaneously stretches endlessly and rushes by in a blur of detached sensory input. The language spoken by clients is varied, reflecting Rome's diverse population. You hear Latin, of course, but also Greek, Gaulish, and various provincial dialects. Communication is often rudimentary, relying on gestures and a few key phrases. This linguistic barrier further emphasizes your isolation, making genuine connection almost impossible, even if it were desired. You exist in a bubble of transactional silence, punctuated by brusque commands. The peril in these interactions is manifold and ever-present. First, there's the constant threat of physical violence. While not every client is abusive, the power dynamic is inherently skewed. You are vulnerable, often alone with a man who holds all the power and who might be fueled by alcohol or aggressive impulses. A wrong look, a perceived slight, or simply a client's bad mood can quickly escalate into a slap, a punch, or worse. You learn to read the subtle signs of aggression, to anticipate outbursts, to try and de-escalate situations with practiced deference. Your body is constantly tensed, ready to react, to defend itself with what little strength you have. Then there's the risk of disease. Ancient Rome had no understanding of sexually transmitted infections, STIs as we know them, syphilis, gonorrhea, and other ailments spread unchecked. You are constantly exposed. And while remedies for various ailments existed, they were often ineffective or simply unavailable to someone in your position. A persistent cough, a rash, a burning sensation. These are not just minor discomforts. They are terrifying harbingers of potential illness that could incapacitate you, making you unable to work, and thus, unable to survive. The fear of debilitating illness is a silent, constant terror. Historians still debate the specific prevalence and types of diseases endemic to Roman brothels, but it's clear that the health risks were incredibly high. Beyond physical threats, there's the pervasive emotional cost. Each encounter leaves a mark. The constant objectification, the repeated violation of your personal space and autonomy, chips away at your spirit. You develop a protective numbness, but it's a fragile defense. Moments of vulnerability, perhaps when a client is unusually cruel, can pierce through your carefully constructed emotional walls, leaving you with a profound sense of despair and self-loathing. You long for a moment when you are seen as a human being, not just a body for sale. You learn to quickly assess each client's potential for trouble. Is he drunk? Does he seem aggressive? Is he likely to pay? Or will he try to cheat you? Your ability to make these rapid judgments is crucial for your immediate safety and your meager income. You're constantly on guard, even during the most mundane encounters, never truly letting your guard down. This constant vigilance is exhausting, mentally and emotionally. One lesser-known detail about Roman prostitution is the occasional use of specific identifying marks or even dyes. While not universally enforced, some sources suggest that certain types of prostitutes might have been required to wear specific clothing, like a toga, usually reserved for male citizens, or even have their hair dyed blonde, a sign of foreignness and often associated with prostitutes. Imagine the additional layer of public stigma this would add, further cementing your outcast status and making it impossible to blend in or escape your identity. Sometimes, a client might try to engage you in conversation, asking about your life or offering a seemingly kind word. These rare instances are confusing. Are they genuine, or merely a prelude to a more insidious form of manipulation? You learn to be wary even of kindness, as it can often be a trap, a way for clients to extract more from you than just your body. Trust is a dangerous luxury you cannot afford. The transactions, while brief, often dictate your entire day. Your earnings, meager as they are crucial. You rely on them for your food, for your small portion of rent to the brothel keeper, and perhaps for the tiniest hope of saving enough to escape this life. The prices for your services are often fixed by the brothel keeper, leaving you no room for negotiation. You are simply a tool in their financial machine. As the day turns into night, and the flow of clients continues, your energy wanes. Your body feels used and depleted. Your spirit bruised. The cycle feels endless, a perpetual treadmill of interaction and exploitation. You long for the quiet moments in your cell, however bleak, just to be alone, to gather yourself before the next patron arrives. But even in those quiet moments, the echoes of the encounters, The lingering smells and the ever-present threat of peril remain. You are trapped, a commodity in a world that offers little mercy, forever navigating the complex, dangerous dance between patrons, pleasures, and the profound, unyielding threat to your very being. The relentless flow of clients and the stifling atmosphere of the lupanar are constant burdens. But beneath it all, an even more fundamental and crushing force dictates your existence: the economics of exploitation. You quickly realize that your life is not your own, but a commodity, meticulously managed by the brothel keeper to ensure maximum profit at your expense. Every transaction, every fleeting moment with a client, has a price, a meager sum that rarely makes its way entirely into your hands. The brothel keeper, or Lena if it's a woman, is the central figure in this financial web. She or he sets the fees, negotiates with clients, and dictates the terms of your service. Your role is simply to fulfill the demand. Imagine a ledger, perhaps kept in a dusty corner, where every coin earned from your body is meticulously tallied, but only a fraction, if any, is ever truly yours. The most basic Roman prostitute, often called a meretrix or prostibulum, commanded very low prices. In cities like Pompeii, inscriptions found in brothels suggest prices could be as low as 2 asses, a tiny bronze coin, barely enough to buy a loaf of bread. To put that into perspective, a common laborer might earn a denarius, worth 16 asses, for a day's work. You realize that to earn even a meager living, you would need to see numerous clients, day in and day out, pushing your body and spirit to their absolute limits. This constant pressure to maximize output is a relentless force, driving you deeper into exhaustion. Your poverty is not just a state of being, it's a trap, binding you ever more tightly to this miserable existence. You are constantly in debt, whether it's for the food you eat, the water you drink, or the small, cramped space you rent within the lupanar. The brothel keeper often acts as your creditor, providing these necessities at inflated prices, ensuring you can never truly earn enough to pay off your dues and escape. It's a vicious cycle. You work to pay off debt, but the debt only grows, tying you perpetually to the establishment. You might dream of saving enough for freedom, or to start a different life, but that dream quickly becomes a cruel illusion against the backdrop of your daily earnings and the brothel keeper's insatiable demands. You also face deductions for various hidden costs. Perhaps a portion of your earnings goes to a protection fee, or to a licensing fee if you are a registered prostitute licentiosa. You might be charged for the oil in the lamps, for the coarse cloths on the cot, or for any minor injury that prevents you from working. Every single expense is meticulously accounted for by the brothel keeper, ensuring that your net income remains pitifully low. There is no transparency, no recourse. You are at the mercy of their accounting, and they hold all the power. The lack of financial literacy or access to independent advice further solidifies your entrapment. You might not understand the intricacies of Roman currency or the true value of goods outside the brothel. You are reliant on the brothel keeper for all information, and they, of course, have no incentive to enlighten you. This deliberate obfuscation of financial realities makes it almost impossible to plan an escape or understand your true economic standing. Historians still debate the average net income of Roman prostitutes, but consensus points to a life of perpetual destitution for most. Consider the contrast with other professions in Rome. Even a common laborer might earn enough to rent a small room, buy simple food, and have some agency over their life. For you, every coin is accounted for, every meal provided by the brothel keeper, further eroding your independence. You are perpetually on the verge of destitution. Always just one bad day, one illness, one injury away from complete destitution. This precarity adds immense psychological stress to your already grueling physical existence. You notice the hierarchy even among the women. Some might command slightly higher prices, perhaps for their youth, their beauty, or a particular skill. But even for them, the basic economics of exploitation remain. They might have marginally better conditions, perhaps a slightly less cramped cell, but they are still trapped within the same system, controlled by the same forces. True upward mobility is virtually non-existent within this industry. The clients themselves are often part of this economic landscape. They are looking for the cheapest available service, the most accessible gratification. They are not concerned with your well-being or your struggles. For them, it is a simple transaction, a momentary release, and they expect to pay as little as possible. You are forced to accept whatever is offered, knowing that refusing a client could lead to punishment from the brothel keeper or a loss of desperately needed income. One uncommon detail that highlights this economic exploitation is the idea of tesserae spintriae, small Roman bronze or lead tokens often depicting explicit sexual acts. While their exact purpose is debated by scholars, some believe them to be brothel tokens. Others argue for them being gaming pieces or even simply erotic art if they were indeed used in brothels. They would serve to further anonymize the transaction. You would be exchanging your body for a token, which you would then redeem with the brothel keeper, further removing you from the direct monetary exchange and reinforcing your lack of control over your earnings. It's another layer of dehumanization, turning you into a mere cog in a token-based system. The continuous pressure to earn, to meet the brothel keeper's demands, means you are rarely, if ever, given a true day off. Illness, fatigue, or even a personal desire for rest are rarely tolerated. Every moment you are not actively engaged in providing services is a moment of lost profit for the brothel keeper, and thus, a moment for which you might be penalized. This relentless grind ensures that your body is constantly working, even when it cries out for respite. The despair of your financial situation is a heavy blanket. You see no escape, no viable path out of this life. The debt grows, your body weakens, and the hope of a different future dwindles with each passing day. You might hear whispers of other women who tried to escape, only to be caught and brought back, facing even harsher penalties. The system is designed to keep you trapped, to ensure a steady supply of cheap labor for the brothel keeper's profit. So, as the day ends and you collapse onto your cot, the true misery of your existence isn't just the physical indignity or the emotional toll. It's the profound realization that you are fundamentally owned by the very economic forces that govern this shadowed world. You are a captive of exploitation, bound by poverty, with no clear path to freedom. Every beat of your tired heart is a testament to the brutal economics of exploitation, a system designed to keep you trapped, to ensure that your misery fuels another's profit. Beyond the relentless economic and emotional burdens, your daily existence in the lupanar is a constant battle against forces that undermine your very being, the insidious threats of hygiene, health, and a pervasive sense of hopelessness. These elements are not just inconveniences, they are silent, relentless companions, chipping away at your body and spirit with every passing day. Imagine the environment around you. Cleanliness, as you understand it, simply doesn't exist. Water is a precious commodity, rarely used for anything beyond essential drinking and perhaps a cursory rinse. There are no private bathing facilities, no fresh, running water for personal ablutions. You are forced to exist in a state of perpetual uncleanliness. The air is heavy with the mingled scents of unwashed bodies, stale sweat, urine, and the lingering, cloying odor of cheap perfumes attempting to mask it all. Your clothes, likely a single, worn tunic, are never truly clean, absorbing the grime of your surroundings. The conditions are a breeding ground for disease. Roman brothels, particularly those catering to the lower classes, were notoriously unhygienic. You are constantly exposed to dirt, vermin, and the bodily fluids of countless clients. While the Romans understood some basics of public sanitation in larger cities like sewers and aqueducts, personal hygiene for the impoverished was a different matter entirely. You likely suffer from skin irritations, persistent itching from fleas and lice, and minor infections from cuts and sores that never quite heal in the pervasive damp and filth. The greatest threat, however, is the constant exposure to disease, without any understanding of microorganisms or sexually transmitted infections. The spread of ailments within the lupanar is inevitable. You might experience persistent discharges, painful sores, or a burning sensation, all terrifying signs of an infection taking hold. These are not just discomforts, they are potential death sentences. A severe infection could leave you incapacitated, unable to work, and thus unable to earn. In a world without social safety nets, illness means destitution, and destitution often means a quick end. Consider the remedies available to you. There are no trained physicians readily at hand. Your options are limited to crude, often ineffective folk remedies, or the dubious advice of the brothel keeper. You might be given a concoction of herbs, a poultice, or a charm, none of which truly address the underlying infection. The pain and discomfort persist, and you watch with a growing sense of dread as your body slowly deteriorates. Historians still debate the specific types of STIs prevalent in ancient Rome and their treatments. But it is clear that many ailments that are easily cured today would have been debilitating, chronic, and often fatal for someone in your position. The physical toll of this constant exposure is immense. Your body, already exhausted from the continuous labor and meager sustenance, is under constant assault. You might suffer from chronic infections, internal pains, or persistent fevers. Your physical appearance, once perhaps vibrant, rapidly deteriorates, marked by illness, fatigue, and the pervasive grime. This physical degradation further exacerbates your dehumanization, making it even harder for you to be seen as a person. Beyond infectious diseases, the constant physical demands also take their toll. Your muscles ache, your joints protest, and your skin is often bruised or irritated. Sleep, when it comes, is rarely restful, and the conditions of your bed only contribute to your physical misery. You carry the weight of your exploitation not just in your mind, but physically, in every strained movement, every painful breath. The relentless battle against illness, injury, and constant uncleanliness feeds directly into a profound sense of hopelessness. You see no escape from this cycle. If you become too ill to work, you will be discarded, replaced by another unfortunate soul. There's no pension, no medical leave, no kind hand to offer aid. Your value is purely transactional, tied directly to your physical capacity to perform. When that capacity diminishes, so does your right to exist within the brothel's walls. This hopelessness is a crushing weight on your spirit. You watch other women succumb to illness or simply disappear, and you know that their fate could easily be yours. The dreams you might have once harbored of a different life, of escape, of love, slowly wither and die under the relentless assault of your reality. You become numb, a defense mechanism against the overwhelming despair. There is no future, only the endless, miserable present. One uncommon detail that emphasizes the precariousness of health for Roman prostitutes is the lack of proper documentation or legal recourse for illness. Unlike some slaves or respected commoners who might receive basic medical care from their masters or through guilds, prostitutes often lacked any formal support system. If you fell ill, you were largely on your own, relying on questionable remedies or the grudging, often self-serving, care of the brothel keeper, who would only provide help as long as you remained a viable source of income. This further isolated you, amplifying the terrifying reality of your health risks. You try to maintain some semblance of strength, forcing down meager meals, trying to ignore the aches and pains. But it's a losing battle. The environment is against you. The system is designed to consume you, and your own body, under constant duress, is slowly giving out. The thought of a simple, clean bath, a fresh meal, or a night of undisturbed, healthy sleep feels like an unattainable dream. The constant fear of disease, the lingering stench of the brothel, and the physical breakdown of your own body all combine to solidify your conviction that this is a life without hope. Each new ache, each new symptom is a confirmation of your inevitable decline. Your spirit, once perhaps vibrant and hopeful, slowly but surely withers, replaced by a hollow resignation. You are a captive of your circumstances, your body and mind steadily consumed by the wretched realities of your existence, all under the shadow of persistent disease and an overwhelming hopelessness. As you endure the relentless grind of the lupanar, you become acutely aware of an invisible, yet profoundly impactful, burden that weighs more heavily than the physical tolls your social stigma and legal limbo. You exist as an outcast, forever marked by society's scorn, stripped of fundamental rights, and navigating a complex legal landscape that offers you little protection and much condemnation. From the moment you entered this life, your societal standing plummeted. You are no longer considered a respectable Roman citizen, even if you were freeborn. Instead, you are categorized as infames, a legal term denoting a loss of social standing and a general dishonor. This infamia meant you were stripped of numerous civil rights and public dignities. Imagine being barred from testifying in court against a free man, from holding public office, or even from marrying a respectable citizen. Your voice, in the eyes of the law and society, simply does not matter. This legal limbo is a terrifying reality. While prostitution itself was not illegal in Rome, it was heavily regulated and stigmatized. You might be required to register with the aediles, local magistrates responsible for public works and order. This registration process was often humiliating, requiring you to formally declare your profession and, in some cases, even your earnings. This act of public registration further cemented your infame status, making it virtually impossible to ever fully re-enter respectable society. It's a permanent brand, a mark that follows you everywhere. Even if you were to somehow escape the brothel, the social stigma is pervasive. You feel it in the dismissive glances of passers-by, the sneering remarks of those who consider themselves morally superior. You are an object of scorn, a convenient target for the frustrations of others. Children might be warned away from you. Respectable women might pull their cloaks tighter as you pass. You are a pariah, a living embodiment of Roman society's hypocrisy, tolerated for your services yet utterly despised for providing them. This constant judgment erodes your self-worth, making you feel inherently dirty and unworthy. You understand that your testimony in legal matters would be dismissed, your word held in contempt. If you were assaulted, robbed, or abused, your chances of receiving justice were minimal. The legal system, designed to protect citizens, offered almost no recourse for someone in your position. This profound lack of legal protection leaves you incredibly vulnerable, open to exploitation not just by your brothel keeper and clients, but by anyone who chooses to take advantage of your powerless state. Historians still debate the practical application of these legal restrictions. But for you, the chilling reality is that you are virtually defenseless. Even your clothing might be a mark of your profession. While sources vary, some suggest that common prostitutes might have been required to wear specific, brightly colored garments, or perhaps a simple, unadorned toga typically worn by men, instead of the stola preferred by respectable women. Imagine being forced to wear a uniform of shame, a constant advertisement of your degraded status. It makes blending in, disappearing, or even just feeling normal utterly impossible. You are visibly an outcast, a walking billboard for societal condemnation. The loss of your familial ties is often another consequence of your profession. If you came from a respectable family, your decision or forced entry into prostitution would likely have resulted in your immediate disownment. You would be cut off from your relatives, from any support network, left utterly alone. The shame you brought upon your family would be immense, and they would likely sever all ties to protect their own reputations. This social isolation, this severing of bonds, further reinforces your status as an outcast, robbing you of the last vestiges of conventional human connection. You are also barred from many religious practices. While some Roman cults were more open, many traditional Roman religious rites and ceremonies were reserved for those with good moral standing. You might find yourself excluded from public festivals or denied participation in certain rituals. This exclusion from the spiritual life of the city further alienates you, creating a void where communal belonging once was. One uncommon detail that vividly illustrates this legal limbo is the existence of the ius tolendi filios. This was the legal right of a Roman father to take up or refuse to acknowledge a newborn child. While not directly linked to prostitution, the widespread poverty and lack of legal protection meant that children born to prostitutes often faced immediate abandonment or were themselves immediately forced into lives of servitude or prostitution. This underlines the profound intergenerational nature of this misery and the lack of any legal or social safety net for those born into such circumstances. The very streets of Rome, while grand for some, are a hostile environment for you. You navigate them with a constant awareness of your low status, trying to avoid confrontation, to be as invisible as possible. Yet knowing that your profession makes you inherently visible, you are an object of curiosity, of disdain, and sometimes of outright aggression. Your public identity is solely tied to your role, stripping away any individual personality or aspirations you might possess. The psychological impact of this constant stigmatization is immense. You internalize the scorn, slowly coming to believe the derogatory labels applied to you. Your self-esteem plummets, and a profound sense of shame settles deep within your spirit. You yearn for dignity, for respect, for a moment where you are seen as a human being. But such moments are fleeting. If they occur at all, your daily interactions reinforce your worthlessness, cementing your status as a societal pariah. You might dream of escape, of finding a different path, but the reality of your legal and social standing makes such dreams almost impossible. Where would you go? Who would take you in your past? Your infamia would follow you, a shadow stretching across any attempt at a new life. You are trapped not just by the walls of the lupanar, but by the invisible, unyielding chains of societal judgment and legal prescription. You are forever branded, an outcast in a world that offers no redemption, condemned to a life of perpetual social stigma and legal limbo. Amidst the crushing weight of your daily existence, there are moments, however rare and fleeting, when you glimpse the possibility of a different life. These fleeting freedoms, however, often prove to be false hopes, cruel illusions that only serve to deepen the despair when they inevitably fade. You cling to them, nonetheless. For even the smallest flicker of possibility is a vital lifeline in the overwhelming darkness. Perhaps it's a client who seems different, not kind, necessarily, but less demanding, more respectful. He might offer a slightly higher payment, or engage in a brief, almost human conversation. For a fleeting moment, you imagine what it would be like to be treated with a modicum of dignity, to be seen as something more than just a body for sale. You might even allow yourself to dream that he could be your salvation, a benevolent figure who recognizes your plight and offers a way out. This is a powerful, dangerous fantasy. You hear whispers among the other women, stories of someone who did escape. Perhaps a particularly beautiful girl was bought by a wealthy man and became his concubine, or even, in exceedingly rare cases, his wife, or a woman saved enough money, penny by agonizing penny, to purchase her freedom from the brothel keeper and disappear into the anonymity of the city. These stories, often embellished and passed down like folklore, become legends within the lupanar, sustaining a fragile hope that if they could do it, perhaps you can too. You might try to save your meager earnings, hiding a few asses here and there from the ever-watchful eye of the brothel keeper. Every coin saved is a tiny act of rebellion, a small step towards a hypothetical future. You imagine the accumulation of these coins, the moment when you finally have enough to buy your freedom, or to simply disappear and start anew in a different city, far from the shame and the squalor. This secret stash becomes your most precious possession, a tangible representation of your desperate dreams. But these dreams are fragile, often shattered by the harsh realities of your situation. The brothel keeper is always vigilant, always suspecting. Any small accumulation of wealth is quickly noticed and often confiscated. Debts are manufactured. New fees are imposed, ensuring that you remain perpetually in their thrall. The illusion of saving enough for freedom quickly dissipates under the cold, calculating gaze of your oppressor. Historians still debate the true frequency of manumission release from slavery for prostitutes, but it's widely accepted that it was incredibly rare, and usually only occurred if the owner had no further use for them, or if a very specific, wealthy patron intervened. Then there are the clients who offer what seems like a better life. A merchant who promises to take you away, to make you his mistress, to provide you with a life of relative comfort. He paints a picture of a small house, perhaps some fine clothes, a future free from the brothel's walls. You listen, your heart fluttering with a dangerous hope. You allow yourself to believe, even for a moment, that this could be your chance. But these promises are almost always false hopes. The merchant might be sincere in the moment, but his intentions are fleeting, fueled by lust or a temporary whim. He might take you away for a few days, only to discard you just as quickly when his interest wanes, leaving you more vulnerable and further from any support than before. Or he might bring you to a different, equally oppressive situation, a private form of bondage where you are even more isolated and controlled. You quickly learn that men's promises, particularly in your line of work, are rarely to be trusted. It's a bitter pill to swallow, realizing that even the kindness you encounter is often a veiled form of exploitation. The social stigma you carry, the infamia, is another invisible chain. Even if you manage to escape the physical confines of the lupanar, you can never truly escape your past. Your reputation precedes you. No respectable household would hire you as a servant. No virtuous man would marry you. No guild would accept you. You would forever be marked, ostracized by mainstream society. This realization is a crushing blow, confirming that your freedom, if it ever came, would be a solitary and marginalized existence. You might see glimpses of freer prostitutes, perhaps the meretrix who works independently from a single room taberna, or the feminae proboscae, disreputable women who operate in taverns or on the street. They seem to have more autonomy, more control over their bodies and their earnings. You might envy them, seeing their lives as a form of freedom compared to your own. But you also know that their lives are just as dangerous, if not more so, exposed to the elements, to unregulated violence, and to the constant risk of arrest by the urban cohorts. Their freedom is often just a different kind of misery. It's a reminder that even within the broad category of Roman prostitution, there were endless shades of degradation. One particularly rare and often tragic path to freedom for a Roman prostitute was through a legal process called manumissio, or formal freeing from slavery, sometimes performed vindicta, by a fictional lawsuit before a magistrate. This usually only happened if an owner no longer desired to profit from them, or if a wealthy patron provided enough money to essentially buy their freedom from the brothel keeper. However, even if legally freed, the social stigma would persist, making true integration into Roman society incredibly difficult. So, while theoretically possible, it was almost a mythical occurrence for most, a dream tantalizingly out of reach. The occasional holiday or festival offers another form of fleeting freedom. For a day, perhaps, the brothel is quieter, or you are given a temporary reprieve from clients. You might be allowed to venture out, to witness the bustling crowds, the vibrant colors, the sounds of celebration in the city. For those few precious hours, you can pretend, just for a moment, that you are a regular person, anonymous in the throng. But then, the sun begins to set, and the familiar dread returns. The brothel calls you back, pulling you inevitably towards its grimy walls and the harsh reality of your perpetual captivity. These small, tantalizing glimpses of a better life These fragile threads of hope ultimately serve to highlight the profound misery of your true situation. They are like brief flashes of lightning in a perpetual storm, illuminating the darkness for a moment, only to plunge you back into an even deeper gloom when they disappear. You learn to guard your hopes, to prevent them from taking too strong a root. For their crushing disappointment is almost as painful as the physical and emotional abuse you endure daily. Your life is a perpetual cycle of yearning for escape, of seeing a path to freedom, only to have that path vanish into the ever-present reality of your exploitation. A constant reminder that for you, fleeting freedoms are truly false hopes. As your days within the lupanar continue to blend into a monotonous, dehumanizing cycle, a chilling undercurrent defines every moment the ever-present threat of violence, your profound vulnerability, and the demanding vigilance required for mere survival. This isn't just about economic exploitation. It's about physical peril that lurks in the shadows of every interaction. You learn quickly that the world of the Roman prostitute is one where personal safety is a luxury you cannot afford. The brothel keeper, your Lena or Leno, is often the first source of potential harm. They rule their establishment with an iron fist, using fear and physical punishment to maintain control and ensure compliance. Disobedience, a missed client, or even a perceived disrespectful glance can result in a beating, a denial of food, or other cruelties. You witness these punishments meted out to other women, and the chilling spectacle serves as a constant reminder of your own precarious position. The fear of their arbitrary wrath is a heavy weight on your shoulders, forcing you into absolute submission. Beyond the brothel keeper, the clients themselves are a significant source of violence. Many arrive drunk, their inhibitions lowered, their tempers easily flared. Others carry deep-seated frustrations or aggressions that they unleash upon you. Knowing you have no recourse, a demand might turn into a shove, a refusal into a slap, or worse. You are alone with them in the tiny, secluded cells, utterly at their mercy. There are no witnesses, no one to intervene, no one to protect you. This profound vulnerability is a constant, suffocating sensation. You learn to read the subtle signs of aggression, the tightening of a jaw, the clenching of a fist, the sudden shift in tone. Your senses become hyper-alert, constantly scanning for threats. You try to de-escalate situations with practiced deference, to appease, to submit quickly, simply to minimize the duration and intensity of the violence. Your body instinctively braces for impact, anticipating the next blow. Every encounter is a gamble, a roll of the dice where your body is the stake. The violence isn't always overt physical assault. It can be verbal abuse, degrading insults, or psychological torment designed to break your spirit further. Clients might mock you, demean you, or remind you of your wretched status. These words, though not physically painful, leave deep wounds, chipping away at your self-worth and reinforcing the despair. The sheer indignity of being treated as less than human, often by men who view themselves as superior, is a constant form of emotional violence. Outside the lupanar walls, the threat of street violence persists. If you are forced to walk the streets to solicit clients, or if you are dismissed from the brothel, you are exposed to a world that offers even less protection. Roman streets at night, especially in the poorer districts, could be dangerous. You might face muggings, abductions, or attacks from drunken gangs. Your infamia makes you an easy target, unlikely to receive aid from passers-by or protection from the watchman. You learn to move furtively, to avoid dimly lit alleys, and to be constantly aware of your surroundings. A perpetual state of vigilance. Consider the absence of any legal protection. As an infamous individual, your ability to press charges, to seek justice for an assault, is virtually non-existent. The legal system, designed to uphold order for citizens, offers no shield for someone in your position. You are left to fend for yourself, to endure the violence with no hope of redress. This legal void exacerbates your vulnerability, creating a terrifying reality where you are literally outside the law's embrace. Historians still debate how often Roman authorities intervened in cases of violence against prostitutes, but generally, they were seen as fair game, their bodies viewed as commodities without full legal protection. The constant exposure to violence, both threatened and actual, takes an immense psychological toll. You live in a state of perpetual fear and anxiety. Your body might develop a chronic tension. Your sleep might be disturbed by nightmares, and you might experience symptoms of trauma. The world becomes a dangerous, unpredictable place, and every new person you encounter is a potential threat. You learn to trust no one, to rely only on your own instincts for survival. One uncommon detail that hints at the pervasive nature of this violence is the use of restraints or punitive measures within some brothels. While not universally documented for all prostitutes, some historical accounts or archaeological findings suggest the possibility of women being confined or even chained if they were deemed uncooperative or rebellious. This underlines the absolute control exerted by brothel keepers and the severe consequences of defiance. Turning the brothel into a literal prison for many, your vigilance is not just about avoiding immediate physical harm, it's about anticipating broader threats to your existence. Will a client refuse to pay? Will the brothel keeper suddenly decide you are no longer useful? Will illness strike, rendering you even more helpless? These are all forms of slow, systemic violence that gnaw at your peace of mind. Every moment is a calculation of risk, a desperate attempt to stay one step ahead of the forces that conspire to crush you. The sheer loneliness that accompanies this vulnerability is immense. You have no one to confide in, no one to protect you. The other women are often too preoccupied with their own survival to offer true solace. And camaraderie is a luxury that rarely flourishes under such brutal conditions. You are an island, constantly battling against the hostile currents of your environment, with only your own desperate will to survive as your shield. As the day turns into another night, and the cycle of clients continues, you feel the weight of this constant threat pressing down on you. Your body is weary, your mind exhausted, but your senses remain acutely tuned to the potential for danger. You are trapped in a world where violence is a constant companion, where your vulnerability is exploited at every turn, and where vigilance is not a choice, but a desperate, exhausting necessity for every single breath you take. The relentless march of days and nights within the lupanar has stripped away much of what you once were. Your body is weary, your spirit bruised, and the vibrant hope that might have once burned within you has dwindled to a faint ember. As your story reaches its grim conclusion, you are left to contemplate the enduring echoes of despair, the lasting imprint of a life lived on the absolute margins of Roman society. Imagine looking back, if you dare, at the woman you once were, that person, full of innocence, perhaps with dreams of a simple, respectable life, is now a ghostly figure, almost unrecognizable. The constant indignity, the relentless physical and emotional toll, has sculpted you into something new, hardened, wary, perpetually tired. The laughter you once knew has been replaced by a bitter cynicism, and tears rarely come, for your spirit is too dry, too exhausted for such release. The lupanar, with its grimy walls and oppressive atmosphere, has become your entire world. The sounds and smells that once assaulted your senses are now simply the background noise of your existence, barely registered. The faces of clients blur into an undifferentiated mass, their individual features lost in the repetition of transactional encounters. You move through your days with a practiced detachment, a necessary shield against the overwhelming reality of your situation. The pervasive dehumanization has left an indelible mark. You are no longer seen, nor do you often see yourself as a person with individual thoughts, feelings, or aspirations. You are a commodity, a body for sale, and that identity has seeped into every fiber of your being. This loss of self is perhaps the most tragic consequence of your life. A profound emptiness where your unique essence once resided. You yearn for a moment of genuine human connection, a moment where you are seen and valued for who you are. But such moments are fleeting, almost illusory. The constant threat of violence, the ever-present vulnerability, and the exhausting need for vigilance have sculpted your demeanor. You are always on guard, your senses finely tuned to potential dangers. Even in moments of stillness, your mind races, anticipating the next threat, the next demand. This perpetual state of anxiety has etched itself onto your face, in the lines around your eyes, in the subtle tension of your jaw. True relaxation, true peace, is a concept as foreign as mercy. Consider the health implications that have become chronic companions, the persistent infections, the unhealed sores. The general malaise that permeates your body are a constant reminder of the unhygienic conditions and the lack of proper care. Your physical form, once perhaps strong and vibrant, is now worn, marked by the ravages of disease and relentless toil. The fear of an illness that will render you completely incapacitated, completely useless, is a silent, terrifying hum beneath the surface of your awareness. The legal limbo and social stigma you carry are invisible chains, binding you even if you were to somehow escape the lupanar. Your infamia would follow you, a shadow stretching across any attempt at a new life. Respectable society would forever shun you, your past an inescapable brand. This realization is a bitter pill, confirming that freedom, for you, is not about reintegration, but merely a different kind of marginalized existence. The echoes of societal condemnation would follow you wherever you went, whispering your shame. You are a testament to the fact that even in an empire renowned for its law and order, there were vast pockets of human suffering and exploitation. The Roman peace, the Pax Romana, did not extend to the hidden corners where people like you struggled for mere existence. Your story is a silent counterpoint to the grand narratives of emperors and legions, a testament to the harsh, often overlooked, realities of life at the bottom. As you conclude this chapter of your miserable existence, the enduring echoes of despair are not just a feeling, they are a legacy of profound suffering, of dignity lost, of a spirit crushed under the weight of an unforgiving system. There is no triumphant ending, no sudden escape into happiness. There is only the quiet, persistent hum of what was, and what will likely continue to be. You are a shadow in the annals of Roman history, a life defined by its absence of choice, its abundance of misery, and the deep, pervasive despair that lingers long after the oil lamps dim.